Hey everyone, Andy here in the Boomer TV studio with Alan Steinfeld as our host today, author of the upcoming book from St. Martin's Press called Making Contact, The New Realities of Extraterrestrial Existence. You can be part of this amazing journey on the bloomerboomer.com platform that will launch you toward the happiest life you desire after 55. And now, Alan Steinfeld.
Thanks, Andy. I appreciate being here and talking to, I guess they're my peers, whoever they may be. I'm going to continue that discussion that I began last week, which was sort of introduction to what I mean about making contact. I don't mean email contact or getting someone's phone number. I mean contact in the bigger sense of it. And so, like Andy said, I am coming out with this book. I'll show you a little snapshot of that. This is some of it. Do you see that there, Andy, on your screen?
Making Contact.
Yes, exactly. Preparing for this is a collection of essays by me and some of the best researchers in the field. And for researchers in this field, this is not just a curious hobby. Oh, yeah, I saw something in the sky, and what is it? And no, this is a field that has histories and legacies and decades and maybe even centuries of study and interest and possibilities. So I've contacted people I consider real experts to contribute essays to this book along with my own. So the reader, can get a real holistic understanding of what it means to make contact with these other beings, whoever they may be. I'm not saying I know who these beings are. I'm just saying it seems like there's something out there that is maybe not human, wants to appear in our skies for some reason or another, is here to maybe uplift humanity. I think actually, I think no one really has the definitive answer about what's going on here with with making contact. So I think we don't know. We don't know a lot, but we do know some things, and we're going to go into a bit of the history of what that is. So let me just pull up this PowerPoint again, and then I'll go lay out some of the basics. I mean, if you were listening last week, it'll be a repeat of some of that information that I displayed last week. Here we go. Okay, that was the book there. This is what I call the point of making contact, where that mysterious hand from the unknown reaches out and ignites not just the population of Earth, but a new way of thinking, a new thought. It's about making contact. What this book is really about is how do we change the way we think about our relationship to reality. And yes, there may be other beings out there that are influencing our ideas of the world. This is what we see sometimes as UFO over Stonehenge, which is nice, or it really starts here. And I covered this a little bit last week. The whole idea of making contact or invasions or ETs began before H.G. Wells, but it became popularized in this book, The War of the Worlds, 1898. And I think this was sparked by sightings around the world of what was called mysterious airships. And then H.G. Wells, who is still a major influence in science fiction over 100 years later, took some of these ideas and made this sort of a threatening scenario. And that was picked up by, let's see, this guy, Orson Welles. no relationship to HG, as far as I know. Orson Welles did the radio dramatization of War of the Worlds, and you can see in this headline from the New York Times, many flee homes to escape gas raid from Mars. And this was all fabricated by Orson Welles as this radio play taken after War of the Worlds, but you can see how freaked out people were of the idea of making contact. Well, I don't think we have to be afraid. I think who's ever out there is not invading, and they do seem to be out there because there's reports. There's over 100,000 reported sightings to the National UFO Reporting Center in Seattle. There were 100,000 between the years, I think it was 2005 to 2015. Within 10 years, they took 100,000 reports. And yes, some of them were mistaken objects. Some of them were the planet Venus. Some of them were airplanes, but not all of them. I don't think all of them were. I think some of them were really unidentified, as they call it. This is another picture. Let me go back to that play current slide. This was another picture in the 20s and 30s that came out, and this whole idea of fantasy, of fantastic, the War of the World, this invasion. So this idea of fear about these ETs, or whatever's out there, has been kind of programmed into our world. But like I said last week, we don't have these other beings to fear because I think they're more advanced, they have a higher technology. Doesn't mean that they're more compassionate, but I think if we were to be invaded, it would have happened by now. And maybe it has happened, some people will say. But I don't think so. I think they're preparing us, this is my belief, for meeting a greater intelligence, which we're a part of, but because of our warlike nature, actually nobody really wants to play with us. We have to get over that. And of course, we're projecting that warlike nature onto other beings that we haven't even met. And it may not be true. I don't think it is true. I think they're here to help us evolve, but we have to help ourselves first because we got ourselves in this mess. We're going to have to get ourselves out of this mess. But I do have to say something is increasing. Like this slide says, worldwide sightings are escalating at a phenomenal rate. They're being seen in every major city around the world by hundreds of thousands. They've begun making international news. So people are not just fabricating these ideas. Something is out there. Something really is. I'm going to show a little bit of this news clip here. Let me see. Okay. Here we go. This is a kind of a montage of a lot of different sightings that have happened around the world.
A UFO in China's skies forced Zhoushan Airport to stop operations on July 7th. Outbound flights were grounded after the unidentified flying object was detected by a flight crew. The incident has captured the attention of Chinese media. Theories about the UFO's identity are burning up on the internet as well. They include everything from a hidden U.S. bomber to an elaborate man-made hoax. For now, the UFO continues to be a mystery.
Elaborate man-made hoax. I don't think the Chinese government is going to shut down their airport for an elaborate man-made hoax. I mean, especially in China. I don't think they have any patience for that. But what it could be is what I'm talking about.
Spokesman from China's Civil Aviation Administration confirmed to ABC News that the matter is under investigation.
Some Chinese residents are on edge this morning after another apparent UFO sighting. It's the second one in 2 weeks. The first sighting was on July 7th, and an airport had to be shut down.
All right, that's a UFO.
Right, it's not just China. I don't know. I guess this newscast just had, but it's all over the world.
You were involved in a UFO incident without them looking at you like you ain't wrapped too tight.
Right.
And then there's the story you may have already heard about, United Airlines employees who swear it was something otherworldly in the skies above Chicago's O'Hare Airport on November 7th, but neither the FAA nor indeed their own employer appears to be taking them seriously. Chicago Tribune interviewing several people anonymously, including maintenance workers.
Right. This UFO over O'Hare in Chicago stayed there for 45 minutes and then boom, just took off. So you go through the papers, through the news, and find these news stories. They appear occasionally. Everyone says, "Oh, what's that?" And then it's forgotten about. Almost everyone forgets about it. I'm going to get to that.
Baggage handlers and pilots who each and all described a dark gray saucer-like object that hovered low over Concourse C of the United Airlines terminal just before sunset, before shooting off into the sky. Some say it moved so fast it literally punched a hole in the clouds. United Airlines claims it had no record of the sighting, even though employees say they filled out reports. The FAA...
That's key. They say they had no record of the sighting, even though employees filled out reports. So something's going on here, something that we're not supposed to know about, or someone in charge is not wanting us to know what's really going on. It's right there in that report. And let me move forward. This is actually something I saw. This is not my photograph, but this is sometimes what they look like, just lights in the sky.
They moved in an arc. They didn't move in a straight line. Like I said, we live with a couple guys who are astrophysics majors, and they're sitting there, running through the list of possible things, and we ran out of things before we could identify what it was.
Okay,
All
one
right,
more.
so what was it, huh? Stevensville, Texas is a farm town where when the sun goes down at night, the stars light up in the sky. And last week, witnesses claim they saw something hovering hundreds of feet above the ground, and they say they saw fighter jets, F-16s, chasing these mysterious objects. But they say it was a mile long and a half-mile wide.
I mean, if this was a hoax, there wouldn't be F-16s chasing this object. There is something going on, and because it's not really investigated, people just ignore it. And let me also say, the other reason people ignore this is because it doesn't fit into what we know of reality. That is the biggest reason this is ignored. There's no place to put this in our little box. I mean, it's enough to deal with the virus. That was new. How are we going to put something even stranger into a box of reality? Let's deal with one strange thing at a time. And of course, this has been around long before the whole COVID thing. But, sightings are increasing, and I'm going to come to the tipping point in this whole phenomena. Happened just a few years ago. Let me go back to my slideshow and let me just see what
it was, quote, positively, absolutely nothing from these parts. By the way, Megan, 200 UFO sightings reported each month.
That's a big number, Bill.
Not just
200. That's not the real number. This was New York, 2010. Actually, I knew when this happened. Yeah, it's a little old, this news collection. I mean, anyway, this continues on and on and on. But it didn't start here. This is a report from 1950. This is in the vault, what's called the vault. If you go to the vault, this is the FBI's website called the vault. And this is a little excerpt from the vault, which is called the Guy Huddle Memo, 1950. This is the agent Guy Huddle, and you can't see the whole thing here, but it says investigators from the Air Force found flying saucers and recovered these circular 50 feet in diameter. They were human shaped. I should get the whole thing, but this is a little excerpt. Only 3 feet tall. They were wearing very fine texture suits, like pilot suits, or not really pilot. They were more like skin tight black like air trooper suits. So anyway, that goes back to the 1950s, and it's continued. You know, it really took off when I sort of got involved with it. This is me with probably one of the most influential researchers in the field, John Mack. He was a psychiatrist. He was actually the head of the Harvard Medical School of Psychiatry, the head of the psychiatry department. He came out, started talking to people who said they made contact, said they've had interactions with ETs, said they've been abducted. I know this is where it gets a little weird, but he talked to them and he said by all his training, these people were actually relaying a real experience, real for them. So I have to say there is something to that. Okay, now this sort of brings us up to date now. Okay, when it really got, when I can say like the rubber really hit the road was in 2017. 2017, there's a huge upset, I would say. Let me go here. Okay, 2017. This is December 16th, 2017. New York Times headlines, glowing auras, black money, the Pentagon's mysterious UFO program on the front page of the New York Times. And this is where some newscasters said it was okay up until this date to call anyone who believed in UFOs a crackpot. After this time, what we thought was science fiction became reality. This is an excerpt from this news report. You can also say, so this is a on the online version of the New York Times, December 16th, 2017, there was a video that I'll show taken by these pilots, these Navy pilots here. Video shows an encounter between Navy FA-18 Super Hornets and an unknown object. It was released, and this is important because it was released by the Defense Department. Defense Department had a secret agency or an undisclosed agency called the Advanced Aerospace Threat Identification Program. And you can see U.S. Defense Department of Defense released this video. Okay. Okay, this is the video of that. Here it goes.
There's a whole fleet of them. Look on the ASA. My gosh. They're all going against the wind. The wind's 120 knots from the west. Look at that thing, dude.
That's the video from the pilots chasing this object called the Tic Tac. And the Tic Tac is now all over the news. You can look that up. It was taken by 2004. That footage was taken in 2004 by Navy pilots from the USS Nimitz off the coast of the Pacific, off of San Diego. Now this is the actual article. I'm going to break this down a little bit, and then I'll take some questions. It was December 16, 2017. Helen Cooper, Ralph Blumenthal, and Leslie Keane. This was, if you look at this line, $22 million spent on this separate project called the Advanced Aerospace Threat Identification Program, or the AATIP is what it's called. It was officials with the program have studied videos between unknown aircraft and between unknown object military aircraft, including one just released, which is what I just showed, in August. So this is in the article, and also in the article it says UFOs have been repeatedly investigated over the decades in the U.S. by military starting in 1947. That it was the Roswell crash in 1947, and then that went into something called the Project Blue Book, and there's actually a a series on the History Channel called Project Blue Book, which the series doesn't go back to 1952, but the studies go back to 1952. Okay. While addressing the merits of the program, aerospace physicists at MIT cautioned that not knowing the origins of objects does not mean it's from another planet or galaxy. This is what we get. This is the official line. This is what we hear over and over again. When people claim to observe truly unusual phenomena, sometimes it's worth investigating seriously. Sometimes, only sometimes. But, she added, what people sometimes don't get about science is that we often have phenomena that remain unexplained. Actually, I don't buy that. The whole objective of science is to explain, to investigate the unexplained, not to explain the uninvestigated. Science exists in order to explain phenomena. So this woman, whoever she is, as a spokesperson or astrophysicist, says, well, just because we don't know what it is doesn't mean it's from another planet. Well, this was a trained Navy pilot. He says this is not like anything that we know. It was not from this world, basically. So, yeah, it could still remain unexplained, but I don't think that's why F-16s were following the crap that was over Stephenville, Texas, or the thousands of sightings that happen really every year, or why the reports of the sightings over the Chicago airport were, even though the reports were filled out, were not acknowledged. So, okay. Now, this program was started by Harry Reid, just retired senator from Nevada, who got two other senators involved to supply what they call black money, which was the $22 million out of the $600 billion defense budget. He got $22 million to research this. And there's Harry Reid. And Harry Reid says that, let me just move this thing here. He says that after talking to the astronaut John Glenn, who was a senator, Glenn suggested that UFOs were something serious to look into. Of course, he was a famous astronaut, and he would know. And upon that request, Harry Reid formed this little subdivision in the Senate to study, got $22 million to investigate these advanced aerospace threat and identification program. And he said, after looking into this, I came to the conclusion that there were reports, some were substantial, but not so substantial, that there were actually materials that the government and private sector had in their possession. So Harry Reid is saying it's not just seeing these objects, but somehow they got their hands on some of this material that came from these objects. So that's a whole other level here. Okay, let me just, here we go. Let me stop that for a second. So just gonna, that's Harry Reid. I'm just going to do a little bit more here from the article because I think it's quite interesting that there's this whole program going on and we have not heard about it except in the New York Times here. Okay, let me just see here. Just going to stop sharing. Okay, I'm going to start sharing again. Here we go. Okay, basically. Okay, I'll just read, instead of sharing, what I will do is read some of this from the report. Harry Reid, who retired from Congress this year, was proud of the program. He said, I'm not embarrassed or ashamed that I got this program going, this investigations into UFOs. I think it's one of the good things I did in my congressional service, and I've done something no one else has done before, which is study this phenomena. Harry Reid says that that his interest in UFOs also came from this guy, Robert Bigelow, in 2007. Besides John Glenn, Robert Bigelow told Harry Reid that this is something to investigate. So let me see if I can pull up a picture of Harry Reid, of Bigelow right there. Let me just see where that is. Okay, there. Um, okay, this is a picture of Bigelow right there. Let me go to slideshow. Okay, that's Robert Bigelow, who is a billionaire. He, a friend of Harry Reid, and it's interesting to note that when Reid got the $22 million from Congress to study UFOs, he gave that to Robert Bigelow as the company to investigate these materials. But Bigelow was also interviewed on 60 Minutes. He comes out on 60 Minutes. It's right here in this reading, 60 Minutes. Bigelow said he was absolutely convinced that aliens exist and that UFOs have visited Earth. He's absolutely convinced of this. And I don't think he would say something if he wasn't convinced. He builds equipment for NASA. He's building these giant tents that will go up in outer space when NASA launches its next phase of space exploration. So this is just more evidence. Internationally, this is Bigelow. We are the most backward country in the world on the issue of UFOs. Our scientists are scared of being ostracized. Our media is scared of the stigma. China and Russia are much more open and work on this with huge organizations. Smaller countries, Belgium, France, England, South America, Chile, are opening up their files. They really are opening up their files to this phenomena. Now, one of the people investigating some of this hardware that supposedly comes from off planet was a guy named Hal Puthoff. People know him as Hal Puthoff. And he said, when we look at this material that came from UFOs and crashed UFOs, particularly at Roswell, you know, the government and the military is trying to reverse engineer it. He said, we're sort of in the position of what happened if you gave Leonardo da Vinci a garage door opener. First of all, he tried to figure out, what is this plastic stuff? He wouldn't know anything about the electromagnetic signals involved in its function. That's where we are. We've gotten this unknown material. We don't know what to make of it, although there's been spectrum analysis about this material, and they found out that it is something that doesn't seem to come from this planet. This is what Bigelow, with the $22 million from Congress, came up with that fact that it doesn't seem like these material came from anything that we know on planet Earth. So what are we to do about this? Where are we supposed to take all these ideas? I'm just going to show one more aspect to this time story that I think is very interesting, and that is by this guy, Luis Alessandro. Luis Alessandro was part of this program. This is Luis Alessandro. He was part of the government program, the Advanced Aerospace Threat and Identification Program, ATIP. And he was one of the government people. He was a military intelligence officer on the 5th floor of the Pentagon C ring, deep inside the Pentagon. In an interview, Mr. Alessandro said that he and his government colleagues had determined that the phenomena, meaning UFOs, that they studied did not seem to originate from any country. That's a polite way of saying it was not from this planet. You know, why doesn't he just come out with saying that? Because that's too shocking. So he says it does not seem to originate from any country. That fact is not something any government or institution should classify in order to keep it secret from the people. So Alessandro actually quit his job at the Pentagon because he says this stuff should be out to the public. And I got one more quote by Alessandro. Why aren't we spending more time and effort on this issue? Alessandro wrote in his resignation letter to Defense Secretary Jim Mattis, who is he says this to Mattis, who's a big shot at the Pentagon. Why aren't we talking about UFOs? And Pentagon officials say that the program ended in 2012. So it started in 2007 with the $22 million. It ended in 2012 after 5 years. But officials who led it said that only the government funding ended. You see the fine print there? It doesn't mean the program ended. It means that the funding of the program ended. So Alessandro quits. This information comes out. What happened to Alessandro and where he went, I think I'll pick that up on the next show. But basically, he and Tom DeLonge, Christopher Mellon, who was an assistant defense secretary under Clinton and Bush, started an organization called To the Stars Academy, a civilian organization that continued the work that they were doing in the government and in exposing this UFO secrecy, this cover up, and that's what that's where we're here now. But that is only I'm not going to go through it all now. Half the issue is the government cover up. The other half of the issue is, well, who's out there? Who's visiting us? And that is where it really gets interesting. But I'm going to leave that for some upcoming shows. I don't want to give away all of it because actually it's an ongoing story. No one really has all the answers. I'm just telling you what I found to be true, and it's undeniable, at least what we heard today with the New York Times stories, with these government budgets, the investigations. Alessandro's quitting the Pentagon. Actually, Alessandro's on a program called Unidentified, along with a bunch of other people from To the Stars. So this is current. I'm not making this up. This has a long history. There's so many amazing books out there. So it's all worth reading. And I'll take some questions now, Andy, if I haven't lost you. Are you still there? Are we still on?
I'm sorry, I did not push my button correctly. I am so
Don't let people
sorry.
push buttons. That's okay. So
But I was saying that I really loved all those pictures and all those news accounts. That was fascinating to see.
Well, this is where it becomes real. It's not just people thinking they saw something in the sky. It becomes real when you see it in the newspapers, basically.
It's fascinating. Hey, well, listen, we're a little long on time, but we do have at least. Can we sneak in one question?
Yeah, I'm here as long as you want. I'm happy to go pursue this because I think the whole subject is fascinating, and there's no answers in sight. So let's talk about it.
Well, anyway, this is the first. A lot of the audience here has been exposed to this, so I guess maybe these are basic questions. I really don't know, but
No, I like basic questions. It's important because I think we have to take the subject very slow because it is new. So go ahead.
Right. Well, Lois is asking, what does the future look like with aliens in the picture?
Well, that's a very complex question.
Yeah, not an easy one, probably.
I could say I think they are here to help. I think with aliens in the picture, it seems like we're going to have technology that we've needed for a long time, such as 0-point energy technology, which means it doesn't run on gasoline. Like who's ever flying these spaceships are not filling up their gas tank to get here. They have a technology that can definitely help us. And this is one of the reasons that's being kept secret in our government, because they don't want other governments to get the idea of how to propel these objects through time and space with something other than gasoline, oil. So it's a positive move. It represents a whole shift in how we think about reality. It's going to change everything we know about the universe, our world, technology, physics, free energy. It's a revolution then that's why it's taking so long for the government to own up to it, because they don't know how it's really gonna affect people. There's a great book by Richard Dolan called AD, After Disclosure, which talks about some of the psychological ramifications and other implications of what it's going to do. Will it affect religion? Will this be the end, or will people like worship these beings? So anyway, that's many books unto itself, that question, but it's a good start. Okay, what else you got?
James, and again, you may have already talked about this, but he says, "What
Okay.
proof? What proof do we have?"
was he was he paying
Yeah,
attention
that's
to
right.
the
That's why I said that.
but
Yeah.
no, but I think what he's asking for is what came out of the New York Times is disclosure. What he's asking for is what's called in this world of ufology confirmation. He's asking for, okay, we want to see the bodies, we want to see the crash ships, and that is a very important point. Confirmation. And this is still what is being kept secret. If you believe in something going on at Area 51, it is the reverse engineering of this proof that they're asking about, and that is where there's still that gray area. Okay, we say something's in the sky, but we're not going to show you. When that comes out, when confirmation comes out, that's when all bets are off. Right now, scientists, and like we saw in the article, well, I don't really know, it could be something else. The proof is the game changer. Right now, we're just on the edge. This 2017 December article, New York Times, was the beginning of the game changer, but the real game changes when they haul out the bodies, which I believe they do have. Some at the Wright-Patterson Air Force Base, some at Area 51, some I'm sure at locations that nobody knows. When that happens, okay, we are in a new world. Right now, it's the same old world where I think maybe. So that question actually is a really great question, because that question is the crux of the whole matter. So thank you. I'm going to get to that next time.
Sure,
Yes.
the proof, yeah. Well, Alan, I think we're kind of running out of time, but maybe we can pick up where we left off next time.
Yes, I definitely. Well, I just get excited talking about this. This is a big story. Like I said last time, this is the Super Bowl of all media stories. When this starts to really hit the presses, it's gonna change our world. It'll be sort of a pun on the word earth shattering. It really will be. And of course, look for my book, Making Contact, out in, I think it's coming out in May. Amazon, Making Contact, Alan Steinfeld. This will give you a lot of what I can't cover in these broadcasts. It's preparation for the new realities of extraterrestrial existence. That's the subtitle. And it's 12 essays, really about 12 people and their essays on all the fine tuning of what I'm saying here. Government whistleblowers, investigations, the psychological ramifications, personal stories of experience. I share my personal story that maybe I'll get to at some point on these shows. So, Making Contact on Amazon, Alan Steinfeld. Thank you very much, Andy, for the time and this program.
Thank you very much, Alan. And watching, that's Alan Steinfeld, author of the upcoming book from St. Martin's Press called Making Contact, the New